this is our apps tab here. And what you're going to see are the various third-party applications where your end users have gone in and granted an o-auth token. So we tend to cast a pretty wide net into things and tend to pick up on a lot of stuff. So depending on how you want to approach apps, there's a lot of different ways, but certain cases, if there's an application you know about right away, very easy to search for the name of that application and just pull it up right away. So in the case of that educational application that popped up, very easy to go ahead and find it. So in this case, I'll use a different application as an example here and just type in cloud here. So this Cloud HQ would be one that maybe this is one I want to look at here as a potential. This is just an example application in this case. A couple different things I can take a look at when I'm looking at the application. One of those first things is going to be the scope categories section here. The scope categories section is going to give you visibility into what kinds of permissions this application has onto the accounts that have gone ahead and authorized the application here. So each of these fields here are clickable. So you can see here, we've got some basic profile info. It has the ability to view and manage its own configuration data. It can look at files in Google Drive, it can view email addresses. It also has the ability to read, send, delete, and manage a user's email, manage basic mail settings. So all these different permissions can be really helpful in giving you some great visibility into, okay, what does this application actually have the potential to do? What does it actually have visibility into with my end users here? From there, we can also take a look at who's actually using the application. And the first way to do that would be by coming over to the organizational units category here. This can be really helpful if you have an application where maybe it's perfectly fine for younger elementary school students to have it, but if you suddenly notice, hey, there's a bunch of middle school students on here as well too, and depending on how your OU structure is set up, you might start seeing things like that as well. And that can be really helpful to give you some great visibility into that as well. Now you are able to click on the application's name itself here, and this will actually dive you into the application and show you the various people that are using it. From here, you then can come in and actually break permissions on any of the users using the application. So you can either go through and break individual users off the application via the remove button here, or if we go ahead and come back for a moment, we can also just click the checkmark box here and click this revoke button. It does the exact same thing. It'll go ahead and break those permissions. It's going to go ahead and revoke that token. So then end users will no longer be signed into that application anymore. Now, the next step to that is then actually setting up a policy around applications. So these are our app policy sections. And this is where if we came down to a specific policy that met the criteria of the application, we wanted to make sure people weren't reauthorizing into the domain there. We just click the drop down arrow here where it says none, set that to revoke access, and that'll go ahead and break the permissions on any new applications that meet the specific criteria we have set up in the individual policy. And there's a lot of ways that we can configure those policies as well too. It can be anything from the name of the application, what's it categorized as, what permissions does it have overall, or even very narrow permissions. So there's a lot of ways that things can be set up in here. Some common examples would be, for example, a policy that targets all game applications that are not sanctioned by you as the admin here. So we could go ahead and set a policy up that way. We can even choose which OUs this policy would apply to as well. So lots of ways we can get things configured and set up to go ahead and break those permissions on certain applications if they are cause for concern and you want to go ahead and make sure end users, if they do try to authorize those, it'll keep breaking those permissions there. But lots of other visibility in here as well too. So that's just one example of a way to dive into things, but there's lots of other ways. We have other areas like our access levels here to focus in on applications that have very powerful permissions into some of the core elements of the Google Workspace environment, such as emails, files, things of that nature, as well as a vast number of different app categories, which can be extremely helpful to search through, such as games, VPNs, even things like explicit applications or social applications. A lot of times we'll see a TikTok authorized onto students' accounts as well. So a lot of visibility and searching here on the app side of things.